Ladies and gentlemen, live from the West Bank of the Flats, you know what it is. It's your boy LG with Cleveland Sports 360. Live in the show today with LG is no other than Browns legendary coach, no other than the head coach of the Cleveland Browns and the Cardiac Kids, Sam Rutigliano. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, LG.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of the Cleveland Sports 360 show, where we are blessed today with the presence of a winning Browns coach, Sam Rutigliano, from the Cardiac Kids era, Brian Sipe, the Pruitts, Greg Pruitt. We had some winning teams back then, Coach. Welcome to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. How are you today, Coach?
I'm doing great, and it's great to be with you, and we're looking forward to 2012 to, what's the right term? Turn it around?
Turn it around, rebuild it, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I think the term now is build it. We're through rebuilding it. We're going to start building it now, Coach.
Yeah, I think the since the time that we've come back and all the changes that we've made, and now Mike Holmgren's here, and Mike Holmgren is a guy that belongs to the Walsh tree. It's a quarterback-driven league, and I'm counting on him to make the right decisions to get this thing going.
Let me tell you, that's a good point you brought up there, Coach. Mike Holmgren and Tom Heckert. A lot of people in the city of Cleveland are kind of being harsh on these two fellas. They've only been here for a couple of years now. I believe this will be their third season with the Cleveland Browns. And just coming from a guy that knows football like yourself, Coach, nobody wants to lose a football game. Is that correct?
Well, and those two men know it best. They don't want to lose, but it's kind of the everything rises and falls on leadership. It's called the law of navigation. Anybody can steer a ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. As an example, and I hate to use it, Pittsburgh, 39 years, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, 470 wins, 6 Super Bowls. Consistency confirms authenticity. Same thing right now with Bill Belichick. Same thing with Tom Landry. 29 years, the only coach in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. 20 straight winning seasons. 16 straight years in the playoffs. 5 Super Bowls, 2 of which they won. So, hopefully we got the right people, and we'll have the law of navigation and get the right picks and get it done. It's going to be more difficult now because we're in a division where all 3 teams last year went to the playoffs, and they are not going to get any worse. They're going to get better.
Well, one thing, you brought up an interesting point on our ride in this afternoon, Coach. You were what? Coach number 5 of the Cleveland Browns since the start of the franchise back in 1950, right?
Well, I know I don't have to remind all those Browns fans out there, but, while Paul Brown and Blanton Collier were head coaches of the Cleveland Browns, they were the best for 20 years. I was the 5th head coach in the history of the Cleveland Browns, and Doug Deacon was the 3rd offensive left tackle in the history of Cleveland Browns. And boy, I coached so long ago, most people today think I was a pretty good coach.
Well, you were an excellent coach.
They made too many changes.
You were an excellent coach, Sam. You won football games, and we went to playoffs, and you had some winning records, and you had a team back then. I think what we're lacking today is the consistency or the right of navigation you're talking about to keep the focus going forward. And we've been through so many quarterbacks in the 13 years the Cleveland Browns returned to the NFL. We've been through so many coaches. I don't know what to tell you. In my opinion, this is the first time the Cleveland Browns organizations had a clear leadership put in place with Mike Holmgren as the president and Tom Heckert as the and I'm talking the new Cleveland Browns, not the old ones. I don't consider the Baltimore Ravens part of the equation here, but we started over from ground one in 1999, and right now we have a Browns draft coming up. We have Colt McCoy as the quarterback. And, Coach, I know Brian Sipe won the league MVP in 1980, and this guy had a gift of leadership out there on the field. Tell us a little bit about Brian Sipe, because in my opinion, I know he was a good quarterback and he got the job done, but he strictly was not a Joe Montana out there either. What made Brian Sipe so special?
Well, Brian Sipe was a 13th round draft choice. And as all of us, as we know our history, they traded Paul Warfield, after 5 years, was into the Hall of Fame, from Mike Phipps, a quarterback from Purdue, who the coach said was better than Len Dawson and was better than Brian Greasy. Well, he laid an egg that's still out there in the stadium, and Sipe was a 13th round draft choice. And that's why, Drew Brees was a second-round draft choice. Montana was a second-round draft. Montana was a third-round draft choice. Steve Young was a second-round draft choice. Dan Marino was a 32nd pick in the draft during his year, where they had 6 quarterbacks. He was the 6th quarterback. So it's really, as Ron Wolf from the Green Bay Packers, who won a Super Bowl with Mike Holmgren, said, it's virtually a crapshoot. You don't know. Brian Sipe had what all the great ones had. He had that indefinable inside that you can't read, that he was a guy that empowered people around him to play at a level that they never thought they could play themselves. Guys like Reggie Rucker and Ricky Feature, who were free agents. Guys like Tom DeLeon and Robert Jackson, who were free agents. Guys like Cody Risen, 7th round draft choice. Doug Deacon, I think a 6th or 7th round draft choice from Illinois, who was a tight end in college. And all these guys played at a level, and that's what you saw with Larry Bird. That's what you saw with Michael Jordan. That's what you saw with a guy like Magic Johnson. Guys that people around them knew. It's kind of like the 7th game of the NBA championship, and they're down by 1 point. There's 3 seconds left to go in the game, and there's Michael Jordan. 4 other guys have grapefruits in their esophagus, and Michael Jordan says, "Give me the ball." That's what Sipe was. We never went into a game where we said, boy, I hope we win. Every single game that we played, we knew we were going to win the game, because we knew if we could stay in the game with 4 minutes to go and he had a chance, he was going to get us down there to kick a game-winning field goal or throw a touchdown for a pass. The guy was just, being the MVP. I think the last guy that was the MVP, I don't know, Paul Brown, with a football team here in Cleveland. So, and it's just an immeasurable, and it's very tough. And that's why, of all the guys you see, like now RG3, and you see the kid Luck from Stanford, of those picks in the history of the game, 50% of them don't make it.
So, Coach, my question to you is, with Mike Holmgren and Tom Heckard, these guys are showing a certain willingness to stick with Colt McCoy. Now, can Colt McCoy be a guy like Brian Sipe?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, that Colt McCoy last year, in the last 2 years, in the final 8 games of 2010, in 2010 we had 6 touchdowns by 4 receivers. We had ranked 32nd in 20-plus plays, which means the playmakers. We come back in 2011, we have 9 touchdowns, and we're ranked 29th. We have 2 rookie offensive guards. Pashas, who really never played. We got a problem at right tackle. Peyton Hillis takes a dive. The previous year, 1,200 yards, 61 receptions, 11 touchdowns. We lose all of that. So if you put Colt McCoy with Andy Dalton at Cincinnati, and you put Andy Dalton with the Cleveland Browns, both of them would do the same thing. So they have the number one thing that they need to do offensively is they have to have 2 more playmakers as wide receivers. Hopefully one with some experience, and hopefully one that's right on the top of the list this year, a productive guy, and that the guy with experience would help him and also help Greg Little, the kid that we drafted on the 2nd round last year. And we got a lot of things to do. And the other thing that that needs to happen is Steinbach. If Steinbach comes back and we could play him at that left guard with Thomas and Mack on that side, and then take the kid Pinkston, who played left guard last year but was a tackle at the University of Pittsburgh, put him at the tackle, get another experienced tackle there. Laval will be okay there, and I don't know what they're going to do in the running back position. Hopefully Braxton will come back, he'll be okay. I think they're counting very heavily on Montario Hardesty, but he's had a lot of bad luck as getting hurt. And then, of course, Obernaya had a good year. They might not be bad there, but draft a kid there also. If they can do that, then I think you can sit down this time next year and really evaluate Colt McCoy. Because if you look at the guys that are making in the playoffs every year, and you look at guys like Eli Manning, they are surrounded by playmakers. Because, you never saw a jockey carry a horse across the finish line. This kid, McCoy, had 112 touchdowns. He won 45 games. He had a 71.8 completion percentage. And the one thing you evaluate quarterbacks is their completion percentage. You look at guys like Breeze, you look guys like Rodgers, and you look guys like Peyton Manning and many others now that are elite quarterbacks in the NFL. They're all up in the upper 60s and the early 70s in completion percentages, and that's what I'm looking for in less than a month now when the draft comes. What are we going to do? And it's going to be very, very interesting.
Well, one thing I'd like to point out, Coach, with Montario Hardesty, we had another guy on the Cleveland Browns by the name of DeQuell Jackson that suffered a couple injury-riddled seasons, and he was able to turn it around. Now, I'm hopeful that Hardesty may come back in, obviously he's in a different position than DeQuell Jackson is, but I mean, same thing. You had high hopes for DeQuell. He came into the organization. He suffered some injuries, and he was able to turn around last year. Was one of his best years ever. And I'm hopeful, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm hopeful Hardesty can come back this year and maybe turn some things around.
I think the Browns are thinking that way because he had a great year at the University of Tennessee as a junior when we drafted him. But the one position that has the least lifeline in the NFL are running backs. Yeah. And he had an ACL tear, at Tennessee. Then he had an ACL tear here. And they're hoping now maybe if he comes back, that will solve all the problems with Obermeyer and Braxton, who started 13 games with Green Bay when they went to the Super Bowl and won it. Those two guys would be two guys that could substitute for him, and that would be great. I was hoping they would keep Hillis, but they must know something about Hillis that prevented them from bringing him back, because I always felt that there were three good reasons. 1,200 yards in 2010, 61 receptions, 11 touchdowns. He was among the top elite running backs in the league, and all he had to do is do it one more year, and then maybe then. But, when you have your brother selecting your agents, and, he had three agents, and if you threw all of them out of a 50-story building, they would go up.
Coach, I think we have our first caller here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Again, ladies and gentlemen, the number to call in if you have a question for Coach Rutigliano is 216-672-4300. Hello, caller. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I got a question for Coach Sam there. What about the first round? You go after Trent Richardson. With your second pick, you go after Floyd, or you go after the guy from Baylor, Wright. And then in your second round, you go ahead and you take your tackle, and then you work on your defense from there.
Well, let me tell you this right now. Trent Richardson is a great pick. And let me tell you this. 60 to 70% of the time on offense, teams are in three wides or four wides, and they're in the spread formation. Right now, it's changed dramatically about great running backs. We have three running backs. We can find another running back on the second or third round and get a kid maybe for the future concern now. But I'm going to say this. Mike Khalil is a tackle from USC. Morris Claiborne is a cornerback from LSU. And Justin Blackman is a receiver from Oklahoma State. Now, the difference between free agency and trading is, in free agency and trading, you pick guys like Sheldon Brown. You pick a guy like Scott Fujita. You pick a guy like in that category like Ben Watson, and they solve problems at particular positions. Now we got the 4th pick in the first round. And you could pick any one of the 3 guys or the 4 guys that I mentioned, counting Richardson. But my feeling right now is, now where you wouldn't make a mistake with any one of them, the greatest need is at playmaker. The greatest need is at wide receiver. Justin Blackmon from Oklahoma State has 232 receptions in 2 years. He has 38 touchdowns in 2 years. Just recently in Stillwater at Oklahoma State University, he ran a 4.47. So it's a no-brainer. Don't go up, don't go down. Draft Blackmon, and you'll be solving the biggest problem to try to help Colt McCoy, and then I think we need a receiver with experience to help this new guy Blackmon and help this kid Little. I think we can solve the problem by drafting a running back who's going to have a lot of draft choices. And then I really feel very strongly now that they're going to re-sign Steinbach. So if they got a Steinbach, and they got Thomas, and they got Mack, and they got Laval back from last year, and they could take Pinkston at tackle, where he played at the University of Pittsburgh, and get an experienced tackle. I'm telling you right now, that would solve all our problems on offensive, and we got some other things to do defensively. And here's a thing that I think really needs to be overhauled, and that's special teams. Last year, Dawson missed 1 field goal. 2 had bad snaps. 2 were blocked. We had a fake field goal for a touchdown. We had a punt return for a touchdown. And I'm saying right now, if special teams was special, it was the best in 2010, and it went to the worst in 2011. If our special teams gets back in order, and that thing helps us, this year alone, we could have won 7 games. We lost 3 games because of special teams. And special teams avoids you from losing. And now get Joshua Cribbs, in the return ability. Get people around him that help. Here's a guy that's got 8 touchdowns on kickoff and punt returns, and on kickoff returns is the best in the history of the league. And last year he had 1, and I think there was a 35 or 40 games before that he didn't have any. So that's it in a nutshell.
Coach Sam, I have to bring up a question to you, because you brought up the 1,200 yards Hill has had, and now you're talking about special teams. If you remember, the year before last, we had a guy named Lawrence Vickers here in Cleveland, and this guy was a utility player that just went in there and busted people right out of Hillis's way, and I couldn't help but to notice on special teams Lawrence Vickers was there, and he did a lot of key blocking in some of the times where we saw Josh Cribbs make those fantastic kickoff returns. Not having a guy like Lawrence Vickers on the Cleveland Browns, do you think that hurt Hillis and it hurt our special teams?
Well, I think it hurt in 2 areas. I think it hurt because when you go into a 2-back system with when they had Hillis, he gained almost 1,200 yards. He was the lead back all the time. When you get in the red zone and you got a 3rd down and 1, or you get on the goal line, you got a 4th down and less than a yard. You got a lead back like Vickers going up in there. So he not only hurt us on special teams, and a lot of guys on special teams were let go, and some of them went to San Francisco. That guy was the best special team coach I have ever seen in all my time in the history of the NFL. I wondered why Mike Holmgren didn't keep him, because our special teams last year was, with all the things we're talking about, our special teams last year hurt us more than anything.
We've got a tweet from Twitter here. I want to read this off. Coach Sam, do you think the Lerner family is they wrote this bad. I'm sorry, Coach. Do you think the Lerner family is well involved? Basically what they're saying is the Lerner family as much as involved with the Cleveland Browns as the Modell family was.
Well, no, the Lerner family. You have to understand that Al Lerner bought the team, and he was the dad, and he was a guy that was very successful. And then his son, his father died really early, and then he had to take it over. And then I think he was learning as he was going along. And I think right now, he hired a guy like Mike Holmgren. Mike Holmgren is, as I said earlier, Mike Holmgren is under the Walsh tree. Mike Holmgren is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Tom Heckert did a great job at Philadelphia. I hired Tom Heckert Sr. He was here with me in the early day, in all the days of the Cardiac Kids in the early days. So I think Randy Lerner right now has done maybe not what Art Modell did, because Art Modell went to every practice. Art Modell was there all the time. Randy Lerner, I think, has now found Mike Holmgren and Tom Heckert, and then of course they selected Pat Shermer, who Tom Heckert worked for, and Holmgren had a lot of experience with a lot of people that coached with Pat Shermer and knew Pat Shermer. Matter of fact, Pat Shermer's uncle Fritz Shermer was a defensive coordinator for Holmgren at Green Bay. So I think Randy Lerner right now has turned the thing over, and the guy right now is the president, Holmgren, and he's responsible for all the things that are going on. And as I said earlier, with his experience, there's nobody in the NFL that has the experience that he has in selecting quarterbacks, and it's a crapshoot to begin with. So if they're going to stick with McCoy, I think they are going to pick a quarterback maybe in the second or third round that they really like. And the guy I think it's going to be is Kirk Cousins, the quarterback at Michigan State, where Mark Antonio, the coach, Pat Shermer went to Michigan State. They're not talking about that kid at all, but Mike Mayock talks about him a lot, and I like Mike Mayock as a guy that really, covers every year the draft. That this kid may be the surprise of the draft.
I'll tell you what, people, we got Sam Rutigliano sitting live with us in the studio. What a real treat. It's somebody that definitely knows NFL drafts. He's been through quite a few of them himself. What an interesting fella. We're going to be right back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We're talking Cleveland Browns draft with the legendary Browns coach himself, Sam Rutigliano. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're joined live in the studio with legendary Browns coach Sam Rutigliano. Before the break, ladies and gentlemen, we were talking a little bit about drafting football players and special teams needs of the Cleveland Browns. Coach, I just have to put this to you. Suppose you're the head coach of the Cleveland Browns today, and, you know, I know we have Colt McCoy and all that. Let me just rephrase it. You're not the coach of the Cleveland Browns. Let's say you're our Indianapolis Colts situation,
right,
and you have the number one pick in the NFL draft coming up 24 days from today. Who do you take with the number one pick in the NFL draft?
Well, I'll take Andrew Luck. And the reason I take Andrew Luck is because I think that I don't think he's going to be more successful in RG3 because they have absolutely tore the Indianapolis Colts apart. I mean, it's going to be very tough. But Luck, you know, he's been under the center, taking snaps, and you know, the key. And his father, Oliver Luck, I know, who was a quarterback here at St. Ignatius. Then he went to West Virginia. He's now the athletic director at the University of West Virginia. But the quarterback, it's kind of interesting because I think this guy is going to really know. I found that, like with going to Pro Bowls, and especially with Brian Sipe, just listen to me. Everybody that's hearing me right now, quarterback has to see the defense in slow motion. You know, that's what do you mean by that? Well, he comes up to the line of scrimmage and he plays games with the free safeties and maybe linebackers, people that can give you clues as to what the defense is going to be. So, as an example, I come up to the line of scrimmage and I'm Colt McCoy. Well, what people are saying now, no experience, and he wants to get the ball to Ben Watson, and he stares Ben Watson. From the time he drops, he stares at Ben Watson, which puts linebackers in position who are watching that quarterback and looking, and then safeties and people like, let's say you wanted to go down the middle with Watson and attack the Dungy 2 defense, where you got two defenders covering the entire field, and you want to get into a seam. So now I come up as a quarterback and I play eye games with a safety. I'm looking now to my left, the tight end's to my right. I'm looking to the left, and then as the tight end comes up there, now because the free safety sees me looking to his side, a little seam opens up with that tight end. Well, that's what the great ones have. Now here's the difference. Last year, because of the non-support, Colt McCoy, every time he came to the line of scrimmage, the defense looked like Times Square on New Year's Eve. And there's a tremendous difference between both. And so obviously, you know, when you're able to have the success, you know, nothing succeeds like success. Nothing fails like failure. The guy had 32 sacks. He had two offensive guards in front of him. He didn't have a right tackle. There was no pass. We were 32nd. We were 29th in 20-plus plays, which means they never had a lot of big plays. We had a guy named Little who caught 61 passes, but he had 2 touchdowns. He had one game where he had 100-plus yards. Just look at what happened with other teams that were in the playoffs, late in the playoffs, and went to the Super Bowl. Look at Eli Manning with those 3 receivers and what they did for him in the Super Bowl. Well, you know, that's what this kid needs now. And then he ran the ball 61 times, which means that he didn't have 61 plays where he was going to run the ball. Might have a quarterback draw on the goal line, but he ran, which means he pulled the ball down and he saw the defense like Times Square on New Year's Eve. And what he's got to have is, number one, is protection up front. And the second thing you have to have is playmakers. I mean, you know what, Brian Sipe? I called every single player on the team when I got the job, before I met with them. And I called Brian Sipe first. Here's what he said to me. He said, Sam, my arm is sufficient. I want 5 condominiums up front and surround me with smart guys. And that's what I did. I took Logan from a tight end to a wide receiver. Drafted Ozzie Newton, down in the 20s out of Alabama, who was a wishbone split end. I sent Rich Kotite, a tight end coach, to Alabama, and I said, look, I know everything I want to know about this kid. He's a receiver and a punt returner. Find out if he's got a big butt, because I want to make him a tight end. Went down there. Kotite came back. He says, Coach, he's got a big butt. We made him a tight end. He is in the Hall of Fame. Mike
One of the greatest tight ends that ever played the game today.
Exactly. So we made all those moves, and basically that's how you win. And I'm going to repeat myself again. That with Hector's experience in Philadelphia with Andy Reid and all the times they were wins and winning division and getting to the playoffs, and now with Mike Holmgren, I'm counting on those guys now after 2 years, and knowing what they know, to get this team in a situation where we come back next year and have an 8-8 season or have a winning season, and then let's start getting the playoffs and let's start talking Super Bowl.
Well, if you listen to Mike Holmgren this year, I'm talking recently even, he said this is going to be the Cleveland Browns' year to turn things around. He himself is tired of. You just have to be patient, fans. I think Holmgren and Heckert are going to make a few surprises. Coach, what about the free agent market? I mean, you got a guy like Mike Wallace. He's restricted free agent over in Pittsburgh. He wants the kind of money Larry Fitzgerald gets, although he can't play up to Fitzgerald. Why aren't the Browns making more moves in the free agent market?
Well, that's a mystery to me, because as I said earlier, I think that, when they talk about free agency or you talk about trades, I mean, they traded for Hillis. They got Ben Watson. They got Fugitive. They got Sheldon Brown. All these guys were major impacts in the last 2 years. So I felt we'd be a lot more active, because I felt like, get a Garcon, or get a kid like Laurent Robinson, who had 13 touchdowns in the last 11 games with the Dallas Cowboys, a young kid. Get an experienced receiver like that. Draft a guy like Blackman. Sign Hillis, or now go with the 3 you got and pick another one up. But you can't take Trent Richardson, because he got so many things to do. And then, Pashos was hurt all the time that he was at Baltimore, and so get a right tackle with experience. Get a fullback now with some experience, and get that offensive line going. But we need 2 more receivers, one with experience and one like Blackman, and then a guy like Little and a guy like Cribbs, and maybe even this kid Norwood will make it very effective. Just look at A.J. Green last year with Cincinnati. Look at Torrey Smith last year with Baltimore, and look at Mike Wallace, 3rd-round draft choice from Ole Miss. I mean, each year he's had 11 or 13 touchdowns, and this kid Antonio Brown is another one. So you can find them, and they're there. But you need experience, because it helps. Hines Ward helped those kids.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you something right now, Coach. When you talk about Norwood, he surprised me a little bit. And just the size of that guy, he kind of reminds me of a player you had back in the 80s. I know he was a running back, but Dino Hall. I mean, he's got a lot of heart, man. And we were talking before the show. You even cut Dino Hall once, right?
Yeah, I cut him once, and he told me I made a mistake, and then I brought him back, and I apologized.
And then he played 7 years for you, right?
7 or 8 years.
7 or 8 years for
player.
the NFL. But, yeah, I think the Browns need to get out. And the only way we're going to get an experienced receiver is on the free agent market. We're not going to pick one up in the draft.
No,
there's a learning curve there.
There's a few more out there. I wouldn't recommend Terrell Owens or guys like that, but there's guys out there that could make a contribution and help you, because it's amazing how veteran players with young players, even though you have your coaches and even though you have all the experience as a coach, it's amazing how those guys, like a guy like Doug Deacon, can help Cody Risen. A guy like Greg Pruitt can help Mike Pruitt. I mean, they just, the experience at that level is very, very important. You got to have that. It's called chemistry. Chemistry is more important than talent.
Absolutely. I think we have another phone call, Sam, coming into the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Hello, you're on the air with LG and Sam Rutigliano, former coach of the Cleveland Browns. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing great.
Hey, I had a quick question
Okay.
for the coach.
Okay.
And I wanted to know how he would determine whether or not when you're drafting a guy and he's had some so-called character issues in the past, how would you know or assess whether or not he's gotten over that?
Okay. Good. Very, very good question. Because you got to do your homework. And, and when you do your homework and you know the guy has character issues, and as you look at the character issues and you see that they have been repeated and they were given second chances, my feeling about that is I want somebody else to take the risk. I don't want to take the risk because I learned a great deal reading a lot of books about Red Auerbach. Red Auerbach was a great coach with the Boston Celtics. He was a great manager with the Boston Celtics, and he taught me a great, great lesson. Now listen to me. The locker room. The locker room is really important. So if you have if you have a gallon of the best wine in the world and you have a gallon of poison, if you take that wine and pour the whole thing into a gallon of poison, nothing happens. You take one drop. You take one drop of that poison and put it in a gallon of the best wine in the world, and you destroy it. Look at Terrell Owens at San Francisco. Look at Terrell Owens at Philadelphia. Look at him at the Dallas Cowboys. Look at him at the Buffalo Bills. Look at him at the Cincinnati Bengals. Look at him now. He can't even get a job. No. I don't draft guys with character issues because I'm not in the business, of trying to get them well. I'm in the business of bringing people in that are high character. I would rather take a guy with less ability and more character and stick with him, and he's going to win for you.
Well, look at some of the issues, Coach, that the New York Jets are having in their locker room last season. And now with the addition of Tim Tebow going to New York, I mean, he's bringing a completely different, clean, blessed character, if I may use the term.
He's gonna help me. I can tell you this, Larry. My father taught me, and this should go to Rex Ryan. My father taught me a lot of things, but here's what he said, which was most important. Anytime you got an opportunity to keep your mouth shut, take advantage of it. And they talk too much in New York.
Absolutely.
What you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say.
Unbelievable. And Rex Ryan's one of the culprits of the talking going on in New York. So
because that kid, Tebow, is blessed. And he is going to be, no matter what anybody says, he ain't going to change. He's going to change people, not by what he says, by what he does, and he will impact that. People are forgetting already. He won the Heisman. He won a national championship at Florida. Everybody said he couldn't play. He got to the playoffs and had a winning season last year at Denver, and he'll bring the same thing. I wouldn't even be surprised before it's all over in 2012. He might be the starting quarterback with the New York Jets.
I'm thinking that way. Hey, we're going to take another 2-minute break here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We're going to be right back with Coach Sam Rutigliano. We're talking Browns draft tonight. Thanks for joining us. Remember the number to call in with your questions, area code 216-672-4300. We'll be right back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show right here at streamingsportstalk.com. ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show with our coach, Sam Rutigliano from the Cleveland Browns as our special guest this evening, right here at the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We were talking Browns draft, special teams. Right before the break, we had a caller talking about what would you do about troubled players in the draft. Right now, we're going to go right back to our Rush for a Cause phone lines here at StreamingSportsTalk.com. We have another caller. Hello, caller, you there?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right. It's Barbershop Jay.
Hey, Barbershop, how are you this evening? You got a question?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
You got a question
I'm
for the
pretty
coach?
good. Say that again?
Do you have a question for Coach Rutigliano?
Oh, definitely. First and foremost, I want to say, Coach Sam, how are you?
I'm doing fine. If it gets any better, they're going to make two of me.
Hey, and secondly, I can barely hear you guys, but secondly,
Okay, I'll talk right through the
I
mic.
just want to say, that 1980 season, I just wanted to tell you what it meant to me.
Well, great.
I was 10 years old, and after that loss, I got the paper the next day in the special section that they always do in the Plain Dealer.
Right.
I read that section 100,000 times thinking that it was my fault somehow, some way. I was the reason why the Browns lost.
Oh, boy.
But you know what? The question I have for you is this. The connection that the city had with that team and those mid-80 teams, will we ever get back to that under this regime, Holmgren and Heckert?
Well, you know, that's a great question because, you know, in 1979 and 1980, I was back-to-back Coach of the Year. And when we beat Cincinnati in 1980 and won the division against a football team that was the best football team in the world, Pittsburgh, in 78 and 79, I really thought, you know, boy, this is great. And then when we landed at the airport after the Cincinnati game, and we couldn't get to the jetway. There's about 35,000 people there. And I saw Mayor Voinovich at the bottom of the steps. And I spent that time before, you know, we played Oakland, that 2 weeks with Christmas, and I saw what you just said, you know, how I'm getting goose pimples talking about it, how connected that football team was with this city and still is to this day. I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm praying that happens again because this city empowered the NFL to bring a team back here. This city, the Cleveland Browns, has 98,000 Browns backers all over the world. I don't care what anyone says, it is the best. And it was the best during the Paul Brown and Blanton Collier years for 20 years. And I really appreciate your call, but more importantly, what it meant to you. And people talk to me anytime I go out, and I go out a lot, and I do a lot of gigs like this. There's always someone like you that says that, and it's just, I mean, it's just unbelievable all over the city. You know, it's kind of, it was just such a great togetherness, and I appreciate the call, and I hope and pray.
Thank you, and I'll say this.
Bring that to us.
I'll say this lastly. A friend of mine asked me once, when LeBron was here, would you prefer a championship with LeBron over like those Browns teams and Cavs teams of yesteryear? And I said, give me those teams of yesteryear, because again, when Ozzie, when Red Right 88 happened, the fumble, the drive, all of that, the players all said, we hurt not just for us, but again for the fans.
Well,
and it just seemed that we didn't get that when that guy was here. There was a disconnect that I think that was very disrespectful, and that again needs to be brought back like it was in years past.
Well,
thank you, Coach Sam. I got much love for you, man. I'll always remember.
I love you too. Listen, you know, just to kind of stay with that for a second, we had a 25th reunion of the Cardiac Kids in Youngstown, Ohio, just about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and all those players were there. And it was amazing to me. They all spoke for a minute or two, and it was amazing to me what they said about how they loved Cleveland. And regardless of how much money people are making today, they would never trade playing for any other city or any other team. And see, that was the problem with LeBron James, with all due respect. LeBron James never realized that his job, he was a genetic freak. He's a great player. And his job was to empower the people around him to play at a level that they never thought they could play at, rather than say, I went to Miami because I didn't have the supporting cast. Because all the great ones have it, just like Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And I don't know if he'll do it at the Heat. I really don't care anymore. But you're absolutely right in terms of the feelings of this city in the question you brought up and the two examples that you gave me.
You know, that's the thing, Coach. The people love the Cleveland Browns. Even this version of the Cleveland Browns, the fans have been there to support the team, and the fans will continue to support the team. It's not like in New Orleans, which is a city you coached in before, where they wore bags over their head to the games, you know?
Well, with all the regimes from the beginning, when Common Policy came here with Al Lerner as the owner, as you go down the line, and this fall, in September, in the first home game, there will be 73,000 people, and that stadium will be full. And it never fails. Unbelievable.
Okay, well, we're going to take another 2-minute break, and we're going to come back with our last segment with Coach Sam Rutigliano in a very short time. We're talking Browns draft with Coach Sam. We're going to get into the final segment of the Cleveland Sports 360 show, and we're going to find out who Coach Sam Rutigliano would pick to improve this Cleveland Browns football team with Colt McCoy as their starting quarterback. We'll be right back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Clear. We did a 2-hour show. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final segment of the Cleveland Sports 360 show with the legendary coach himself, Sam Rutigliano, from the Cleveland Browns when they used to win football games. And I'm sure with the regime we have in place now with Mike Holmgren and Tom Heckard, the Cleveland Browns will return to winning. The public just needs to stay calm. These guys know what they're doing. They know how to build a winning football team. Holmgren's done it before. Heckard has a great job he did on the defense last year we went to higher standards in the past, and we got to plug a few holes to stop the run. Now, Coach, who would you pick if you were the Cleveland Browns head coach and you were sitting in with these guys right now, and you knew you were going to go out there next September with Colt McCoy as your starting quarterback? What would you focus in, and who would you pick?
Well, the important thing you said, we're going to go back with Colt McCoy. He needs a supporting cast. Okay, I can't give you all the different things, but I would say right now, without question, Justin Blackman, who's a receiver from Oklahoma State, who I said earlier, in the last 2 years has caught 232 passes. He has 38 touchdowns. He ran a 4.47 at Stillwater, which is where Oklahoma State, where he went to school just a few weeks ago. And that's our greatest need. Now, there are other things.
Would you take him with number 4, Coach?
Oh, without question. I wouldn't go down. I wouldn't go up. I wouldn't screw around with it. I would take him, and you just take it. You see what Julio Jones did for Atlanta. You saw what A.J. Green did for Cincinnati. You saw what Torrey Smith did for Baltimore. And you saw what Mike Wallace has done for Pittsburgh. You need that home run hitter, and that'll be great. There are other things we need to do, but and there are other guys you could pick. But that kid is a great player, and he fits a great need. And all you got to look is his stats and what he's accomplished, and he's a good kid.
We need a guy. We could have had Jones, and we could have had A.J. Green. I mean, they were available when we made picks, and.
Well, A.J. Green was picked right in front of us by Cincinnati, and then we took the draft choice from Atlanta, Julio Jones. But A.J. Green and Julio Jones are a little bit of a difference. A lot of people like A.J. Green more, and I think a lot of people like this kid, Justin Blackman. There's a guy named Des Bryant from the same school that went to Dallas that's a great player, but he has character problems. This guy does not have any character problems.
We got a tweet from Twitter, Coach.
Yeah.
Mad Max asks, "What's up with the uniforms? I'm tired of the all white all the time."
Well, I'm not into that. I'm more into the people that are in the uniforms.
So you could care less what.
But what's up with the orange? I'm an old school. I mean,
I like
grew
the
up.
old stuff.
What's up with the orange pants with the brown jerseys? I mean, this all white. I want us to at least look tough. If we're not even tough, can we look tough? What's up with those orange pants? You always had those players wearing those orange pants.
Okay, let's tell all our callers to please send letters to the newspapers, to Mike Holmgren, because I agree with you 100%. Let's stick with what we had when this team was on top of the game.
When they could win.
Amen.
Okay, so with number 4, you would definitely take Blackman. What you going to do with the number 22 pick, Coach?
Well, I think in the number 22 pick, and there's a lot of good offensive tackles, I would go again to see what tackles were available. That's a place because it would just kind of pinpoint that right there. And you might go into some other areas, as an example, another cornerback, because Sheldon Brown now is getting older, and he might want to move in to play safety because you need another corner with Joe Hayden and T.J. Ward, who didn't play a lot of games last year, will really help us this next year. But don't just pick them because of a need. The guy's got to be a player. But this year, there's a lot of good corners. There's a lot of good defensive linemen. And, we got those 2 guys now that came from Parker and the kid Foster. One came from Cincinnati, and one I think came from Philadelphia.
Yeah, Frosty Rucker.
They're going to help us somewhat.
Frosty.
But you might be able to get a quality player in that pick with that pick. But I think you got to go now, stay on the offense, and they might even think at that point there's a lot of good running backs. They might be able to get a good running back in that pick.
Coach, I got to ask you this before we get you out of here. This is something I'm quite sure a lot of people that's watching right now want to know. Art Modell, there's a lot of animosity with some fans in regards to Art Modell and him taking the team and leaving. What's your thought, and if you know anything about the rumors of his health now, what's your thought, two questions, your thought on him possibly ever going into the Hall of Fame, and secondly, your opinion on his ownership when he was in Cleveland?
Well, I think his ownership when he was in Cleveland, he was a great guy in terms of accountability. He was at every practice. He was there with the draft. He listened to what all we had to say, and I think he did a lot for this city, going back to the time when he took over the stadium and did a lot for the city. He unfortunately lost his wife, Pat, this past year, which has made it very difficult. I've talked to him from time to time in Baltimore. He's in a wheelchair. He goes to Baltimore to the office once a week. He goes to all the home games, and he still loves Cleveland. And I really, in my heart of heart, think that if he could, he came here when he was 35 years old. He left 35 years later. And if he could take that Super Bowl that Baltimore won and bring it back to Cleveland, I think he would do it in a heartbeat. And so he did a lot for me. He gave me a tremendous opportunity. And I think that even though it wasn't done the right way, his heart was in the right place, and he really was a great man for Cleveland. And I think if you look at him being involved in those 35 years in the television, in terms of how it grew,
we wouldn't even have Monday Night Football without.
And so I really believe just on that alone, he belongs into the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, Kenyon. And I'll tell you another thing people don't understand. Art Modell was stuck with a regime in Cleveland that wouldn't put any money into the Cleveland Browns Stadium. I mean, it was a business decision. And when people say he didn't do it the right way, there is no right way to leave Cleveland with the Cleveland Browns. I hear the man had tears in his eyes. And Coach Sam, I've had other former Browns players. I've talked to Reggie Langhorne. I talked to Herman Fontenot, was sitting right where you're sitting. And the love that these guys had for Art Modell as an owner of a professional team. I mean, Fontenot was a walk-on invitee.
Yeah,
he made the Browns team. And the first thing he said was every single day he was at practice with Art Modell.
Right.
And Mr. Modell came up to him continuously, is there anything you need? What can I get you? And both those guys were young guys. Langhorne and Fontenot lived in the same little apartment. They had a fish tank. And anything they needed, Mr. Modell asked if they wanted to.
And, Larry, there was a lot of guys who he helped that none of us knew that he helped them.
Exactly. So, I mean, people don't understand. I mean, it's the same way when the Baltimore Colts left and went to Indianapolis. What are you going to do? There's no good way to say I'm taking your football team and I'm leaving. Right. I mean, somebody's going to be mad no matter what. So if the regime in Cleveland would have dealt with Art Modell, built a new stadium, it's funny we have a new stadium now. We couldn't get it when Art Modell was here. Right. We wouldn't even be having this talk. Maybe the Cleveland Browns would have won a Super Bowl by now instead of being 1 of 4 without the Super Bowl. So, Coach, back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We're getting ready to wrap it up. Anything else that you'd like to tell the general public out there is as far as Mike Holmgren goes and Tom Heckard? What do the fans just have to be a little bit more patient? I mean, how do you see it?
Well, to me, I don't think they should be patient. I can understand, how they feel because of all the different things that have gone on. But here's what I'm holding on, and I've been in this thing all my life, 25 years in the NFL. I've coached in high school, coached in college, coached in 3 Pro Bowls, coached in 2 Senior Bowls, and coached in Europe for 7 years. I just know that Mike Holmgren and Tom Heckard and Pat Shermer are the right triangle. You accumulate talent, you assess that talent, then you perform an autopsy on them to get them to play to the level they need to play, and that's what they want to do. There's been a lot of mistakes, and I really believe that they're going to be able to do it, and it's a quarterback-driven league, and as I said time and time in this hour together with this great show, that Mike Holmgren comes from the Walsh tree. And just look at Steve Young, look at Joe Montana, Look at Brett Favre. Look at even Matt Hasselbeck at Seattle, who even went to the Super Bowl. And these guys, with his leadership, are going to get us where we want to go. So let's just put it behind us and then look forward positively. The bottle's always half full, not half empty.
There you have it, folks. What a pleasure it's been. It's been a treat, Coach, to have you. It's an honor to have Sam Rutigliano on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Hopefully you'll come back again someday, Coach, and we'd be glad to have you maybe after the season starts sometime. We'll be talking about some wins here.
Well, I enjoyed it, and it's a great show.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for this evening. We thank Sam Rutigliano for joining us here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Don't forget tomorrow, if you're in the University Heights area, stop in for the Autism Speaks ice cream treat at Ben & Jerry's in University Heights. Right, Kenyon?
Sorry, brother. Exactly. 20650 North Park. That's a University Circle, Ben & Jerry's. We will be lighting it up for autism.
Don't forget, Wednesday and Friday you have Unsportsmanlike Conduct from 4 to 5. And please tune in for our new show. It's becoming very successful. The Sports Outreach Ministries, Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m. Good night, God bless you, and we'll see you next time right here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show.
Clear.
Enjoy it.
Thank you, Sam.